So we're taught from a very young age that there is a single cause to a problem. And this is sort of an approach that is very much ingrained within education. And the logic is that you have a um, a question and that there's a single answer to that particular question. I was thinking about isolation today, and one of the sort of challenging things with um, studying and doing. I often think about PhDs because it's sort of a a typical atypical case, I guess, of life. But a lot of us go through this, and the idea is that you have to focus and think and spend a great deal of time alone to get your work done. There's a tremendous, and ultimately, it's just because there's a tremendous amount of work to be done. You need to spend a lot of time by yourself. It's very solitary, and so there's lots of isolation that happens. And I was thinking about in isolation in of itself is not necessarily a challenging thing, but it often is challenging for I think most people. We're very social beings, right? We like to be around people to we want to be sort of regarded and thought about and all that kind of sort of good human nature things. And so when you're separated by yourself, it's isolating. And I was thinking about how that we often think that there's a single cause, right? So in PhD life, we think that, you know, if you struggle with this, you can't hack it. You're not good enough. Um, and then we sort of fault the individual and we say that, they're problematic. They shouldn't be in this profession and they should be selected out of the profession. Um, But there are a lot of different explanations that could be said, and each and every one of them are correct and they all make sense. So, one of them is why do we have individual differences and characteristics? If we think about psychology, for example, we might think about the different psychology of humans, and some people have different psychology. I really think that, to spend a great deal of time by yourself, you have to um, you're off the charts on some sort of characteristic or trait. Right? I'm not going to name any of them, but maybe that you are really peculiar. And so the cause is, if you were to take that perspective, the cause would be that you have a peculiar trait, characteristic cluster of features that allow you to be alone without feeling the pain of being alone. Now, that's one explanation. Another explanation you might think about it, it's somebody's brain chemistry. And so that if you look at it, their brain chemistry is different, right? We're not thinking about psychology or thoughts or cognition or anything like that, thinking. We're thinking about their brain chemistry and then that they have different functional forms of how their brain chemistry works. Now, you can also look at it, you can sort of, that's on the individual side and think about individuals themselves. You might think about, well, this is an issue with the collective group of where you actually are, right? That maybe it is the group of individuals, the lab that you're in, that is, it's somewhat quote unquote dysfunctional, if there is a such thing as function, right? That it's dysfunctional in the sense that it's just, somebody or multiple people are feeling isolated, and we should identify that and fix that. Now, that might be the case, but then you can also look at the sort of larger, um, you know, institutional setting where maybe there should be, or organizational setting, maybe there should be safeguards in place to not let that happen, to allow the different departments to not fall apart, or different units to not fall apart. Or you can look at it from a very systematic level, and you think like this is the entire academy, the entire profession that is problematic, and we should solve that particular issue. And all of those answers are correct. And you can look at it and you can say, yes, those are all true. Those all matter. And teasing apart which one matters the most is a very, very challenging thing. Statistically, it's hard to do. I'm not going to get into that, but it's just hard to do. There's all of these sort of ways to look at how all of this kind of works out, and all of it is completely right and completely fine, and they're all true. And the challenging thing with all of this is that we are taught to think about a single cause, and the way that we are ingrained is that there is a single cause that is going on. Um, and then we get it sort of mixed up in our head that, in particular, in modern culture and the sort of way that we think about things, the cause is almost always the individual. And then we often blanket it to the way that you think, the sort of cognition, and the fault is the individual. But in fact, it is a great load of other things, many different things that are going on that all matter. And you can think about crime in this kind of way. You can think about, sort of successful outcomes where somebody is winning, quote unquote winning, and it's this entire system and this entire different collection of mechanisms that are playing that allow people to do well or not well, to to function, and even more collectively at the even if you look at biology or chemistry, it's not necessarily one particular thing. It is all these things that are working together, and they're all correct. Um, and it's hard to sort of tease all these things apart. What do we do with this? Um, we're taught to have a single perspective, a single cause, but that is not correct. I think coming from this perspective, where it could be all these different things, I think it's wise to assume. And by the way, people that are looking at disasters, they kind of know this. They come from all sort of different perspectives. Often, if you read these very in-depth reports of an airline accident, they'll have all these different ways where the accident actually happened, and look at all the sort of different levels and different just different all these different causes. And they typically say it's just not one thing, it's all these different things kind of working together. And we have to look at this and think about our own lives. And you know I think for me, um, not only am I easier on myself realizing this, um, but I'm also much more humble. Um, so humility on the one side, where you might think about how you're doing well and all that kind of stuff. Humility is, and I was just super darn lucky. Um, there's a lot of things that could have went wrong and didn't go wrong, and I'm just super lucky. And then on the other side is why I'm easier on myself and why I feel um, better is that I often think like, oh, geez, I'm not that good. I'm not doing anything right here. I got all these problems. I did this. This is my fault. And ultimately, you have to take a step back and say, no, actually, there's a lot that is going on here that is not your fault. That is, it's not your problem. It has nothing to do with you, but it has to do with all these other things that are going on, very systematic, large issues that we know are very true. And other people look the other way. They don't want to know. They don't want to care. But we know that they actually exist. They don't want to solve these particular things. So I want you to sort of identify this, the things in your life where either you're very, um, you think that you caused it, and I want you to question that. Um, and, both in sort of the positive and the negative side of things that happen. I want you to sort of question things and think like, was it really me? Is it what I think it actually is? But instead, all these other things that are going on, and um, there's not really one particular thing that you can nail down. I want you to be easier on yourself. I want you to know that there is a lot of things that are going on, and if something bad happened, it's often not your fault. And then on the other side is if you think that you're doing really well, man, you're just forgetting all these other things that just went right. And um, you could have had the wrong end of the stick very easily, and it would have nothing to do with you. Some food for thought is that, before you start thinking that it's your fault, well, you take a step back and start looking at all these different things that are going on and really unpacking it. And it's a really great exercise because then you will be humbled about yourself. And you'll also be a lot more um, forgiving of yourself. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.